So in this video, we're going to cover rounding decimals. So most of us are used to the whole number place values and their names move to the left. Ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, and so on. Decimal place values, on the other hand, their names move to the right, and they follow a similar pattern except with THS. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, and so on. We're going to put our focus on the right side, the decimal place values. And I highly recommend you memorize these place values before we move on, and it'll make it much easier when it comes to rounding decimals. Let's get into it. There's 3 steps we follow when it comes to rounding decimals, and we'll start off by rounding to the nearest tenth. So step 1, go to the place value you want to round. So for the problem on the left, I want to round this to the nearest tenth. So first I'm going to go to the tenths place. There we go, the 2. Next step, you look at the digit to the right of the place value. So I'm going to look at the digit to the right. If that digit to the right is 5 or bigger, we round up. If that digit to the right is less than 5, that place value will stay the same. That's what teachers mean when they say round down. That just means the place value will stay the same. Looking at the digit to the right, it's a 7, so we're going to round up the tenths place. So now that 2 will now change to a 3. And finally, for the last step, you cut off all digits after the place value. So we're going to cut off everything after the tenths place, so the final answer will be 8.3. Now let's look at the example on the right. Once again, we're going to round to the nearest tenth. Step 1, go to the place value you want to round. That 9 is in the tenths place. Next step, you look at the digit to the right. In this case, the digit is less than 5, so our tenths place is going to stay the same. So in that case, the 9 will still stay a 9, and then step 3 will cut off everything after the tenths place. So the final answer will be just 0.9. Alright, now let's round to the nearest hundredth. We're going to follow the same steps. So for the first example, first we need to locate the hundredths place, and the 6 is in the hundredths place. Now we look at the digit to the right. In our case, the digit is 5 or greater, so the hundredths place will get rounded up by 1, and then we cut off everything after the hundredths place. The answer is 0.17. Now let's look at the next example. Once again, we're rounding to the nearest hundredth, so we need to go to the hundredths place. That's the 8. Now we look at the digit to the right. In this case, it's a 3. It's less than 5, so the hundredths place is going to stay the same, and then we cut everything off after the hundredths place. The final answer would be 6.08. Now let's look at a special case where you're going to have to sometimes round up on a 9, and it's no different than just regular addition. So let's go ahead and round this to the nearest hundredth. First we locate the hundredths place. That's your 9. Next we look at the digit to the right. In this case it's a 7. In our case, our hundredths place has to round up. And so when you round up on 9, it's no different than addition. The 9 plus 1 becomes 10. You keep the 0, carry the 1. It's going to work the same way with this one. We're going to round up. The 9 plus 1 is going to give you 10. That becomes a 0 in the hundredths place. We carry the 1. 3 plus 1 gives you 4. And now we're going to cut off everything after the hundredths place. The final answer will be 1.40. Now let's round to the nearest thousandth. Looking at the example up top, once again, go to the place value. The 5 is in the thousandths place. Now we look at the digit to the right. We don't have a digit to the right. So if you don't have that, you can always add a 0 to the end of a decimal. So the digit to the right is 0. It's less than 5. So therefore the thousandths place is going to stay the same. And we cut off everything after the thousandths place, 7.615. Now let's look at the example below. Once again, we're rounding to the nearest thousandth. Locate the thousandths place. That's a 1. Now let's look at the digit to the right. It's a 6. It's 5 or greater, so the thousandths place is going to go up by 1, and then we're going to cut off everything after the thousandths place. Final answer is 0.802. So sometimes in a problem, they may not ask you to round to the tenths or to the hundredths place or give a particular place value. They might say instead round to 1 decimal place, round to 2 decimal places, and so on. So I want you to look closely at this chart and see how the place values are lined up with the number of decimal places on the right side. That gives you an idea of what place value you need to round to. So when they say they want you to round to 1 decimal place, that's the same thing as rounding to the 10th place. If they want you to round to 2 decimal places, they want you to round to the 2nd decimal place or to the 100th place. When they want you to round to 3 decimal places, they want you to round to the 3rd decimal place or to the 1000th place. And if they want you to round to the 4th decimal place, they want you to round to the 10,000th place, and so on. I'll leave it to you as an exercise to figure out how 9.1738 got rounded to all those answers below. Let's look at some other special cases. Rounding to the nearest whole number. That's the same thing as rounding to the ones place. So you're actually going to look at the tenths to see if you round up. If you have 5 tenths or more, the whole number rounds up. If the tenths place is less than 5, your whole number stays the same. So looking at the example on the left, we have 3.499. 3 is in the ones place. Looking at the digit to the right, it's less than 5, so your whole number is going to stay the same. And we cut off everything, all the decimal places. The answer is just going to be 3. Looking at the example on the right, once again, we're rounding to the ones place. That means you're going to have to look at the tenths. The 8 is 5 or greater, so your ones place is going to go up by 1. You're rounding up on a 9, so it becomes a 0. You're going to carry the 1. It's going to round to 50. Another situation you might see is rounding to the nearest dollar. It's also the same as rounding to the ones place, but it's probably easier for students to see it in terms of the pennies or cents. So if you have 50 cents or more, the dollars will round up. If you have less than 50 cents, the dollars will round down, or in other words, they'll stay the same. So looking at the example to the left, you have $7.61. The cents is greater than 50 cents, so that means you're going to round up to the next dollar. It rounds up to $8. Looking at the example to the right, we have $24.19. Your cents is less than 50 cents, so therefore your dollars is going to stay the same. The final answer will be $24. So the last case I'm going to cover, which not all students have to learn, but I'm going to go ahead and show it anyway, is rounding repeating decimals. So most of the examples we've already shown are terminating decimals. These are decimals that don't go on forever, and you can always add zeros to the end of them. Repeating decimals, you can't do that. Repeating decimals repeat forever in a particular pattern. And we use a bar to show the pattern of numbers that go on forever. And you can kind of see the patterns of the 3 decimals below and how they repeat. As you see, the first decimal repeats in 9s, the second decimal repeats in 8 4s, and the third decimal repeats in 5 1/7s. And so when you have to round to a place value and you don't have the place value that you need, you're going to have to extend the pattern so that you can round them. Let's look at the example to the left. So we got to round to the nearest thousandth. We don't have the thousandths place, so we're going to have to extend the pattern. The pattern goes forever in 26s, so I'm just going to add an additional 26. Now I can see the thousandths place, and now I can round it. Looking at the digit to the right, it's a 6, so therefore we're going to be rounding up on the thousandths place. The thousandths place go from a 2 to a 3, and then we cut off everything after the thousandths place. It'll be 0.263. Let's look at the example to the right. So we need to round to the nearest 10,000th, and we don't have the 10,000ths place, so once again we're going to have to extend the repeating decimal. It goes forever in 1/4/5s, so I'm just going to extend it by an extra 1/4/5. Now I can see the 10,000ths place, which is where that 1 is. Now I'm going to look at the decimal place to the right. It's a 4. That means it's less than 5. That means your place value in the 10,000ths place is going to stay the same. That means it's going to stay a 1, and then we cut off everything after the 10,000ths place. The final answer will be 7.1451. Now that we're finished, you can do something more useful with your time, like go get something out of the refrigerator. But don't eat all the food, or your mom might throw a box of cereal at you. Just saying. Like and share. Math on the fly. Laters.